The progressive left-wing digital outlet, the Young Turks, is refusing to recognize its employees' unions, and I can't say that I'm surprised. We have seen many things like this from various digital media outlets, and I will point out one of the weirdest things is Vice. I remember back when Vice was unionizing, Shane Smith was like, hey man, more power to you, do it, we'll figure it out. That was his response. I'm not saying it was perfect. I'm sure they had arguments in their negotiations. But Vice was supposed to be this edgy, Vice, before they became woke trash, were not super woke. I mean, it was just weird. You'd think Vice would be the last to want to support a union, and the Young Turks would be the first. But sure enough, when it comes to putting their money where their mouth is, the Young Turks are right on board with any other major corporation and other progressive outlets that in the past have just purged people who tried forming unions. Well, I should be a little lighter on the Young Turks. They're just refusing to recognize for now. We'll see what happens. But let's read this story from the Free Beacon. They report, the Young Turks, a left-wing and pro-Bernie Sanders YouTube network, is refusing to recognize its employees' new labor union. A week after the TYT union was formed to represent production and post-production workers at the popular liberal channel. Don't call them liberal, please. I got to stop every time you say this. Guys, the Young Turks are not liberals. They are leftists. Okay, please, there's a difference. The group announced that company leadership had refused voluntary recognition of the union. The refusal, which comes after Sanders proposed penalizing companies that refuse to recognize unions, is the latest instance of a left-leaning news outlet resisting unionization among its employees. And that's kind of weird to me. I got to be honest. Look, I get it. You might get annoyed by the coming increasing costs, but you negotiate with the union. Who cares? They'll unionize. They'll come for a contract. You'll negotiate, and then you'll all move on. And if you don't, they leave. I don't know what the big deal is. How is it me being like, union sounds good, guys, whatever. And I'm not even a pro-union person. I'm like, so what? Calm down. And it's the Young Turks being like, no. Quote, this is a disappointing decision from an organization that presents itself as progressive. What did you think was going to happen? You think these people are actually progressives? They are privileged crony elites with massive funding. The International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, the parent organization of the TYT union, tweeted, join us in telling the Young Turks to respect their so-called principles and respect their workers. Boasting over 200 million views a month, TYT is one of the most popular media voices in the leftist wing of the Democratic Party. Both of its co-hosts endorsed Bernie Sanders, who supports legislation that would automatically grant their employees the recognition TYT has withheld. Under current labor laws, the National Labor Relations Board sets up a secret ballot election if 30% of a workplace employees sign a union card. If a majority of employees vote to unionize, the National Labor Relations Board will certify the union. But employers can choose whether to recognize it. Under Sanders' labor plan, when a majority of workers in a bargaining unit sign valid authorization cards to join a union, they will have a union. If employers refuse to negotiate in good faith, we will impose strong penalties on those companies, according to a press release from IATSE. A majority of TYT's employees signed union cards. In a statement last week announcing its formation, TYT Union invoked the network's left-wing pro-union stance, saying, we're proud to work behind the scenes at TYT to create online content that's bold, entertaining, and unapologetically progressive, the group wrote. There is no other news and talk network quite like TYT, and the perspective our network brings to its political coverage is resolutely pro-justice and pro-worker. Free Beacon then goes on to say that Bernie Sanders had endorsed Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks and then retracted it because Cenk had said a bunch of, nasty things. I think that's unfair. And that shows me the spinelessness of the left. Dude, lean in, stand by people who support you. Grow up. Cenk Uygur is not a bigot because he wrote things in the past. Cenk Uygur is a leftist. He deserves to be called one. He stands by his principles for good, for good or for bad, whatever the reason. It's stupid to pull up his old remarks and be like, I'm going to reject this. Now get out of here, man. The dude supports you. I'll tell you what, though. This is grounds to say I'm going to reject an endorsement. Look, I've defended Cenk when the media smeared him heavily. He's running for Congress in Katie Hill's district. Boy, is there another. You hear about that hacking scandal? Maybe I'll get to that later. But I defended him when the media smeared him. I do not stand for the media smearing anybody, even people I disagree with. But this just says to me what I could have assumed. The Young Turks claim to be progressive and they won't voluntarily recognize a union. Of course, the TYT stands have come out of the woodwork to say, hey, man, they're a scrappy upstart that's trying to fight the establishment. No, they're not. They're extremely wealthy. They make so much money, dude. Are you nuts? Check this out. First, here's the Twitter account. Here's the initial post that the crew of the Young Turks has organized. Good for you guys. Then we have this thread where they said, unfortunately, we're not going to get recognized. Let me show you this. This guy, Adam, on Twitter, Adam Petruccione, says, is it possible that they literally can't afford to unionize? They run on a shoestring budget as it is. Oh, spare me. Make whatever excuse you want for the Young Turks, but this ain't it. I happen to know the minimum threshold for how much money they make, and I'm pretty confident that they're making they're making millions upon millions of dollars per year, and they're probably making 10 plus. So I've talked to people from the Young Turks, excuse me, and they've explained to me how many subscribers they have, how much the average subscriber spends. I know they are not operating on a shoestring budget. I know Cenk Uygur is extremely wealthy. I'm pretty sure he's a multimillionaire. Now, are his staff getting paid well? I'm not going to pretend like I think, Anna Kasparian and the other hosts are getting paid anywhere near what Cenk gets paid, but I'm pretty sure they get paid decently well. But I think it is completely unfair to argue they're operating on a shoestring budget. Based on what I know, from what I've seen, the work I've seen, I think they make a ton of money. Now, one person responded, if they can't afford to pay their employees a fair wage, they can't afford to be in business. That's actually kind of dumb. I get what you're trying to say, but that would mean a lot of businesses wouldn't exist. A fair wage. Well, actually, no. Okay, on the surface, that makes sense. A fair wage, great. If you have a business that makes very little money, what's fair is, sharing what you can with the person who wants to work there. And if they don't want to work there, then they don't. But fair is what you can afford. The Young Turks, in my opinion, they're substantially wealthy. They're well-funded. They can absolutely afford to pay more. But regardless of whether or not they can pay, this is what's most annoying about these people trying to defend the Young Turks in this circumstance. Listen, if a union forms and they come to negotiate with Cenk or upper management, they just say no. So the employees might be like, we want a benefits package. Here's our budget. We're on a shoestring. We can't afford to give that to you. That says nothing about whether or not the union should or shouldn't exist. And I am not a particularly pro-union person. I would never join one. I've been in them before. Do not like the experience. Wouldn't want to be involved. But I got no problem with people. I think collective bargaining is great. It doesn't guarantee you money. I think a lot of these media companies or these people unionize are, I disagree with their views. And here's the thing. When talking about, say, like Vox or these other leftist media companies, these companies don't make money at all. They are investment-funded companies. The Young Turks is very different. The Young Turks has been building and growing, expanding, making money. So they certainly have the money to pay. You got to retract a little bit. Great. That's what BuzzFeed did. When BuzzFeed was like, hey, we've pushed to the limit. This is how much money we're going to make. They laid some people off. They retracted the company a little bit, lowered some salaries, things like that, I think. And then it resulted in them being somewhat profitable. If you've got to retract a little bit, hey, these things happen. But in my view, and what I know about the Young Turks, they're playing games. Now, here's what's funny. How many of you, if I were to tell you that it is typical of leftist media sites to reject unions, to play shady games, would you believe me? Well, some might say, no, of course not, Tim. That's absurd. These are the people who champion the unions. The Young Turks, they're an outlier. They're a for-profit former Republican. Cenk used to be a former Republican, or used to be a Republican. He's a former Republican. And you say they're the exception, not the rule. Oh, I love this one because the Free Beacon links to this story from September 10th, which says, CAP scraps Think Progress relaunch after firing union staffers. Center for American Progress accused of union busting. I love it. You can't deny this, man. I'm sorry. I'll say it's just my opinion, but when you have a staff that says, hey, we're going to unionize, you then say, we're restructuring and firing everybody, and then hire a new staff. I'm going to go ahead and make the assumption that you're union busting. Listen, man, like I said for the third time, I'm not a big union fan, but I think it's wrong to claim to support unions, to push these values, but secretly behind the scenes, you don't care. That's why it's always funny to me that they're like right-wing grifters. Dude, I work for myself. This channel is just me. I do 99% of it. I have some help. That's unfair. But for the most part, I just find stories. I talk about them. The Timcast IRL show has tons of support because now I'm expanding to the point where I need help, and I recognize that I do. And even though I'm not a very pro-union person, I would absolutely be like, whatever you guys say, man, just let me know what you need, and we'll negotiate. And if we can't make it work, well, we can't make it work. But collective bargaining, I'm cool with. I just personally disagree with. So why is it these people who want to accuse us or I'm not going to name names, but some other people of being grifters and trying to scam people when they're literally claiming to support progressive values and labor rights? You know what's even funnier about this? There's a video. It's hilarious. It's from an Amazon HQ protest. Socialists showed up demanding fair wages, and actual construction workers shouted them down, saying no to socialism. You ever notice that the people claiming to represent the working class and labor are upper class, college-educated elites? What's up with that? How come you never see a group of black-clad Antifa who look like carpenters? Or, bricklayers or masons? It's never a construction worker. It's never a plumber or an electrician. It's always a scrawny college grad white dude with some bachelor's liberal arts degree claiming they represent the working class. It's like, bro, you're the educated elite. It's like you're the bourgeoisie protesting yourself. These people are nuts. Now, this story is hilarious. Once again, another examples we've seen in the past. What was it like? I can't remember which company, Gizmodo or something. We're struggling to get their union recognized. Vox, BuzzFeed. It just keeps happening like clockwork. Management says, oh no, we espoused all these fancy leftist ideas and now our staff believes them. What do we do? One of my favorite things, I'm not going to name this company. I want to avoid getting sued. But one of these leftist progressive companies started out libertarian, like big L libertarian, like Ron Paul all the way, baby. And then take that one out of context. And then I like Ron Paul, so it's fine. But then later on became woke progressive. The dudes who owned it were like hardcore libertarians who were just like, hey, man, make money, right? Get paid. And they were producing like this left wing crap, this like woke nonsense. This is what happens. These companies, their intention is to build a business. They're exploiting emotional instability. I'm gonna make a bunch of leftists mad right now. I was reading a study the other day by this guy named Glenn Guerin, I think his name is, talking about how there's a direct correlation in universities with social justice ideology and gender. He said in his study, and it could be wrong, I'm not saying this, I'm just repeating it, and assuming it's true, women have lower emotional stability, which correlates with leftism. Surprise, surprise, that lower emotional stability is easily manipulated by woke leftist content. It all makes sense. These companies like, the Young Turks, Think Progress, know that there are people who are less emotionally stable who can be easily manipulated with shock content that will make them money. And lo and behold, it turns out they're staunch capitalists running the show. Man, it is so annoying to me. I am such a hippie, lefty, libertarian type. I pay too much. I always pay fair. I pay all my taxes. I do everything right. I am anything but a laissez-faire capitalist. I am not a big fan. I lean left. I take a political compass test. I'm basically a socialist. But I'm all about freedom. So I don't believe in instructing other people how they should live and what they should do. I run my business in such a way that I feel comfortable that I'm taking care of the people who are helping make my system, make my business work, because I do believe that it's not a lot of what I've put together and built my YouTube channel was basically just me for the longest time. Now I have help and I make sure I'm taking care of every people to the best of my abilities. Why is it that they accuse me of being the right wing dude? And I genuinely have these principles where I want to help and make sure I'm cutting people into the best of my ability. I want to be safe. I want to make sure my business can survive. But I'll just say I'm probably generous to a fault when it comes to, my view of how a business should run. Yet they point the finger at me and will accuse me of all the worst things in the book while standing behind people who won't even recognize their union. Center for American Progress. Let me read this for you. They say, on Friday, the entire staff of Think Progress was fired after CAP was unable to find a buyer for the site, leading many to believe that it would be taken out of operation. Navin Nayak, executive director for the Center for American Progress Action Fund, praised the site's writers in an obituary on Monday before delivering the news that the liberal think tank would continue to operate the site, albeit without any of the union staffers. It's like a joke, isn't it? We'll be transitioning Think Progress back to its roots as a site that offers analysis on policy, politics, and news. You will be able to count on the new Think Progress to offer a proudly progressive perspective on the most important policy and political debates in the country. The Monday Evening Post drew immediate criticism from the Writers Guild East, which represented Think Progress's 11 staffers. The union emphasized that it was able to deliver 12-week severance packages for writers and editors, but it was livid that the Center for American Progress intended to capitalize off of the labor of the site's writers. We were blindsided by the revelation that CAP intends to continue operating the Think Progress site with its own labor and use the Think Progress social media accounts to promote that work, the union said in a statement. To take away our independent voice and use the wide audience built by Think Progress union staff for other purposes is an affront to the Think Progress mission. I don't think it really is. I think the Think Progress mission was always say whatever needs to be said to get Democrats elected. Tell people you support their union cause, but when they actually step up and say, you know those things you asked us to parrot to get Democrats elected? Well, we actually started to believe them. And now we want to have these same benefits. What do? Yeah, you fire everybody and say, we got to shrink down because we can't afford it. And then you bring on non-union staff. Look, conservative sites, I don't think would ever unionize. I really don't expect the staff of the Daily Wire to form a union. Maybe they would, but I also would be willing to bet one of two things. First, they likely, I think if for some reason a union did form at, say, like the Daily Wire would deal with it professionally, abide by their legal obligations, and they'd be careful, and they would do what they had to do under the law. They'd be suit-wearing business professionals in ties, walking with their briefcases, opening the paperwork and saying, what do we need to do to solve this? You look at these sites and they overreact, they react quickly and with an iron fist. I'd also be willing to bet that if it was the case that one of these right-wing sites was going to unionize and they did say, nah, we're not into it, the audience would appreciate it. They'd be like, yeah, you go, shut those unions down. I don't really think so, because I think something weird has happened where a lot of conservatives have become, it's the blue collar boom. A lot of blue collar people are now supporting Trump and the right. So I wouldn't be surprised if the right actually started saying, you know what, we're gonna do right by the union, but we'll negotiate hard. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But here's the ultimate point. If a conservative website refused to recognize a union, who would be surprised? It's like Donald Trump. He shows up to his rallies in an airport hangar. I'm not exaggerating. With a 747 behind him with his name on it. He literally has his plane pull up and all of his supporters can see this massive jumbo jet, and Trump gets out and he's walking in the wind and he gets up and he goes, that's my jet. It's big, massive, giant jumbo jet. Excuse me, it's the best jet. He's proud. Then you look at Elizabeth Warren. She walks out of her private jet's tiny little rinky-dink thing and she hides. Oh no, they can't find out I'm actually taking private jets. That is a perfect exemplification of what the left and the right are. Okay, maybe not really, but it's a good point. Trump gloats about his wealth. He's proud of it. And his supporters are proud of it too. Well, I got to keep this family friendly, but there's a meme that shows somebody when Donald Trump did all those McDonald's burgers at the White House, and there's a dude holding a stack of burgers all excited. And the media was claiming that it was an offensive thing for Trump to do to give McDonald's. And someone said, if you think, I think like a college athlete is in any way upset that he's eating cheeseburgers in the White House with a billionaire president married to a supermodel, to say the least, who bangs, I'll keep it family friendly, then you would be sorely mistaken. I remember that clip from I think it was a debate. Megyn Kelly said, Trump, you've called women horrible names. Trump goes, only Rosie O'Donnell. And the audience roars. This has been coming up lately because Scott Adams was tweeting about it in the Democratic debate. And then when confronted saying, how do you respond, to the Americans because of your rhetoric? He goes, this country's got a problem with political correctness. He refused to back down. He leaned into exactly who he was, and everyone cheered for it. Doesn't mean he's right, but it does mean he will stand up for what he believes in. Now you take a look at the left, the Young Turks. Oh, they do not lean in. They say, no way, Jose, we can recognize that union. Why is that? Trump is proud of his jumbo jet, his private jet. Democrats hide when they see when they're coming out of theirs. Bernie looking shocked, sitting in first class, all that stuff. It's hypocrisy. That's what it is. They don't support unions. As soon as their staff unionize, they're like, nope, 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 you're fired, get out. The Young Turks were like, nope, what union? You don't exist. I'm not surprised. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. YouTube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel, and I will see you all there.